Hey guys, welcome to Meet Edgar's Twitter content batching party. My name is Megan, if we haven't met before, and I am thrilled you're here. Today we are going to be speaking a lot about how to batch your content, and this is especially important this time of year, going into the holiday season, that we have this content ready to go so that we can enjoy the holiday with our friends and family. Hello, Denise, Jess, Katie, and Shauna. Thank you so much for coming today. Guys, as you can see, there is a chat box over on the right-hand side of your screen. So make sure that you do say hello. Let us know how everything is going. If you have any questions at all, please let us know in the chat. Maura will be in the chat going ahead and looking at any questions that I don't happen to see. I'll also try to leave a little bit of time at the end. If you'd like to stay over the hour, this session will go. This session is geared to get you really comfortable with batching content on Twitter, as well as some of the features that Meet Edgar has for Twitter content. So at the beginning here, I'm going to do a little 10-minute demo of the features Meet Edgar has that are especially useful for Twitter. So if you're a seasoned Meet Edgar user, perhaps switch on over to do something real quick here, or stay tuned and you might learn a little something new. But I'm going to do a quick screen share and go ahead and show you guys some of the Twitter specific content. From there, I'm going to go ahead and go over some posting strategies for Twitter that's really going to connect you to a global community. And then we'll look at some specific examples from other brands, what they're doing on Twitter and why they work well. Andrea, hello, welcome from Canada. Timothy, you as well. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll take a look at some of the features here in Meet Edgar. And then, like I mentioned, I'll pop back over, share some slides, and we'll get into the actual Twitter content. The reason that I really want to make sure this is as useful as possible, because while we're going over the types of content you can put into Meet Edgar, I definitely recommend you have your Meet Edgar account open and you start batching that content, or you just have a notepad open and you start actually writing the tweets that you're going to put in. So this session actually ends up saving you a bunch of time. All right, so if you are new to Edgar, you can hook up your Twitter account under your Accounts tab here. Super simple. You'll hit Twitter here. It'll go ahead and ask you for that new username and password and hook it on up. Edgar does everything in a category-based system of posting, which means it allows you to get a variety of different updates going out throughout the day and throughout the week to make sure you're not getting your content super stale on your page and your followers get a good mix of relationship building content, engagement-oriented content, traffic-driving content, and sales promotion content, which make up a strong social media strategy. So you can make Twitter-specific categories if you'd like, or you can use some of the existing categories as well. If you have a full Edgar account, you can add as many categories as you want. If you have an Edgar Lite account, you can click this pencil icon to rename any of the 4 existing categories. All right, so here's how you're going to add content. When you click to add new content in Edgar, you're always giving permission of where it can go over here on the left. So you're going to check off that this piece of content can go to Twitter. You can always amplify your message out to the other networks. If you are, remember Twitter does have a specific rule for 280 characters, so your other posts would have to match that character limit as well if you're marking this post to go out to multiple accounts. You're then going to go ahead and choose what type of post this is. So this is from the categories here, and then you'll go ahead and enter your post right here. So this is where you're writing it. And you can see as I write in the corner right over here, you have a little countdown for the characters. So Edgar will never let you save a post that's over 280 characters. You can always attach a photo or a video from these icons right down here. Once you are happy with how everything looks, you'll click Save to Library. Your library in Edgar, just where all of the posts are stored, everything will remain here. You can always search for just your tweets with this little social network drop-down menu. Click on Twitter, and that'll show you all of just your tweets. To get your tweets scheduled, you have 2 options. One is our weekly repeating schedule. The weekly repeating schedule right here is going to allow you to do things on a category-based system of posting, and this is best for what we refer to as your evergreen content. So that's stuff that makes sense to send out no matter what time of year it is. You're setting these up with category-specific time slots. So what I do is I click into the area where I'd like this post to go out, always attach it to the accounts you'd like it to go out to, And then you're going to pick what type of post this is. So if I'd like to send out an inspirational post to get my community inspired in the morning, I click on save, and that's now a time slot on my schedule. So how these interact with the posts in your library is a last in, first out rotation. So Edgar's going along here and he'll hit this category. The most recent post you added to this category will be the first post Edgar sends out. He'll then take that post and put it to the end of the line in the category and move along. Next time Edgar hits that category on your schedule, he'll send the next update out, put it to the end of the line and move along. And he'll continue going through each and every post in that category until he reaches the bottom. Now, for Twitter specifically, they do have a term of service that says you cannot repeat the same tweet to the same Twitter account more than once anymore. So for this reason, these time slots will not recycle your content for Twitter. We have everything set up that once a tweet is sent out, we expire it. So if you are someone looking to reshare an evergreen piece of content on Twitter, we have our variations feature. So when I click to add new content here, and I check it off to go to Twitter, this variations feature can be used for any of the networks, but it was specifically built for Twitter. You're going to go ahead and write your status update in this section here. And then you'll notice you have this add variation button. When I click to add a variation, Edgar's going to check off a second text box here where I can just alter the language of what I want to use in this tweet. Now, we actually have a really good download that I'm going to go ahead and share in the chat right here. So this download that I'm sharing here has about 20 different examples of how you can actually use like one piece of content, like a blog post, and make, let's say, 20 different status updates out of them in variations, so that one blog post can be shared to Twitter multiple times, but Edgar will be able to know that it can use a different variation to stay in line with those compliance terms of service that Twitter has. If you're someone who wants to add a different like photo or a different image to each of these variations, you can absolutely change the image out as well. You can see you can select an image on this post, come down to the second variation and select a different image from your computer if you wanted to that way, and continue to go ahead and make variations on that post. Now, these variations are going to send out in a last in, first out order as well. So the last variation that's been added to this post will be the first variation to send when Edgar hits that category on your schedule. He'll then go ahead and put this whole post to the end of the line in the category. He'll work his way through all the posts. The next time that this post is up in the rotation, so remember it's a last in, first out rotation, he'll go to the next variation to send. So these variations will always go out in a last in, first out rotation, but they will not go out back to back unless that's the only post in that category. I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat as well this help doc right here. So this help doc right here is going to show you that last in, first out variations order as well. So definitely go ahead and check those out too. Awesome. So yeah, we do. So you can delete an entire category, but that does delete all of the time slots and all of the content on your schedule, Michael. So just be careful if you are ever in your categories tab and you wanted to delete a category, you absolutely can, but it will delete all of the content in the library and the time slots on the schedule if you do that. If you're looking just to delete all of those categories on your schedule, these filters right up top will allow you to say, show me all of the time slots for my inspirational one. This might make it a little more manageable for you to go in, click in there and delete those categories if you were looking to keep the content in the library, but just not have them on the schedule. I'll also pass that feature suggestion along to our team. We always love to hear feedback. Okay, so I will stay on at the end, like I mentioned, to do a little bit more of a product tour if you do still have questions and you're looking to really get this set up properly and good to go for the holidays. But as we move into the batching section of this content batching party here, like I said, open up Meet Edgar in another tab on your browser, and you'll go ahead and click to add new content. When you see a tweet that you just know would be so good to add in, go ahead and add it in now to make sure this content batching party is getting you new content and really making sure that that content is getting out to your followers. Okay, so to the batching side of things. Awesome. So when you are batching content, the reason we do this is because we want to be as efficient as possible. And especially this time of year, I want you to have like a healthy holiday hustle going on now so that during those holidays, you can actually enjoy the time with your family and friends and be really intentional with the time you're spending on social so you can have those boundaries set up, because as solopreneurs, as entrepreneurs, we need that rest and relaxation time. And as you know, the more that you feel like you don't have a plan or a strategy, the more you basically procrastinate in life. Those two things go hand in hand. So we're going to give you a great strategy for some tweets to add in. And I would recommend blocking off some time on your calendar to get this done. Now, batching can be done in any way that works best for you. Don't think that there's just one way. I personally love to tell people to batch their content on one day a month, because that means you only have to create social media status updates 12 times a year. So much more doable than creating status updates every single day. But if you're someone who would prefer to create status updates, let's say on every first Monday or something like that, absolutely do that. Block out the time on your calendar though, and protect it like it's a meeting with someone else so that you get this stuff done. So for Twitter specifically, as we're going over different Twitter guidelines, I want you to always remember that the words you're putting in these status updates do truly have a lot of meaning in them, okay? The words can transform someone's day in the sense that it can make them smile. Any sort of emotional appeal that you can have on social media really does get people so excited. Twitter also has the way of making sure that your followers are aware that your product or your service can actually transform their lives for the better. This is the mindset you need to have, especially when you're going in and creating like promotional posts, because we all get a little afraid of selling sometimes. We don't want to come across salesy, but trust me, if you have done the great work of laying the foundation for your community, your tweets are going to get out there in a way that people are going to be excited to purchase from you. So take this stuff seriously and get excited about writing tweets. And if you have that energy and excitement, it'll come across in your status updates. Now, whenever you're thinking about posting to a social network, I always like you to think about the mission statement of that social network, because that's basically what's driving all of the features they're creating and what's probably driving the algorithm, right? So let's familiarize ourselves first with Twitter's mission statement. So Twitter's mission statement is to give everyone the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. Our businesses and revenue will always follow that mission in ways to improve and do not detract from a free and global conversation. So that is the thing that Twitter focuses on when it builds its features, when it's thinking about the algorithm. So it's good to have that in mind when you're creating your status updates too, so that you can really know everything going in there is going to be kind of like the nature, the conversation of that network. It's kind of like thinking about if you go to a party at your, for example, in social distancing, apologize there, but if you go to a party at your grandma's house, you're going to speak differently than if you go to a party at your best friend's house, right? Those are kind of the things that I like to keep in mind when you're thinking about the messaging of each network, to have their mission statement in mind and know what they're good for. So as you're going on here, what does this mean for you? This means that Twitter is a free space for you to connect globally with people around you. And when you see that word globally in there, you might be saying, well, I'm just a small business, I'm just a solopreneur, but you can speak to the global and trending events that are going on in life really easily. The way that we speak to those events is thinking about and really kind of understanding what's going on at the time. For example, here, Netflix did a great job when the royal wedding was going on of thinking, hey, we've got something in our business that has to do with a wedding. Let's post that. This is what's trending and going on right now on Twitter. Trending events are huge, and it's typically the stuff that's going to get the most reshares and the most engagement on Twitter. So how could your brand join the global conversation? What's going on that you might be able to like congratulate someone with? Remember, these posts don't always have to be related exactly to selling your business. This is a great brand building post here. Again, with Twitter's ability only to send posts out one time, the same post one time, if you don't want to use the recurring schedule that we looked at before, Edgar also has another way that you can schedule content for a specific date. So if you found something that's trending right now and going on right now, you can actually go ahead and share it in a date-specific time. And I'm going to show you how that works real quick right now. So if you want to share something, like if you know that the royal wedding is going on in your Edgar account, when you click to add new content here, you're going to go ahead and write your post. You're going to, of course, attach it to the networks over here. Then, rather than saving it to your library, I want you to use this drop-down arrow right next to the Save to Library button. So this is the second option you have of scheduling content in Edgar. That weekly repeating schedule is good for what we call automation rules and evergreen content. So that's stuff that doesn't need to be sent out on a specific day, but you just want to keep a consistent flow going to your feeds. This schedule, send, and save feature here will allow you to put in a specific day and time. So again, if you locate a global event going on that you could speak to, go ahead and schedule it on that day and time here. This, especially for the upcoming holidays, is going to be fantastic for you to come on in here, get your happy Thanksgiving posts all sorted out so you don't have to log into social during the day, but you can still be active there. Set the day and time. Now, if this is set with a day and time, Edgar will hold this post until this day and time is reached. He'll send it out to the networks that are attached over here. If this is a holiday post that you only want to use once, Twitter's will automatically expire for you. Under advanced settings, if you want to be extra sure, you can always mark it as a use once post as well. Just something to keep in mind, and something I would definitely recommend, that you look for those special events and you look for those special holidays that are going on at the time. Other things, what's going on in the world and how your brand can fit into it. You can see Smirnoff, another great example here. Same with the royal wedding. Again, these things that are trending gets all of the brands talking about it. And if all brands and everyone is talking about it, you're just joining the conversation rather than starting your own. And going on with the party example here, I always think, like, if you're at a party mingling, it's way easier to join an existing conversation going on rather than having to start your own conversation, right? So if you're thinking about actually starting your own conversation, awesome, good. I always want you to do that. But that's why it's good to think about what people are already talking about, because it's easier to join in on an existing conversation that's already going on, and your post will fit into that so well. So think of the trends that your brand can easily join. Look at NASA here. They went ahead and looked up a holiday that was World Emoji Day, and it happened to fit the birthday of Apollo. What a great collision for them to create this awesome Twitter emoji. These things are really great for you to go out and Google those like fun national holidays. You know, there's like a National French Fry Day or a National Donut Day. If someone in your office is obsessed with donuts, celebrate that with the behind the scenes content on National Donut Day and put that out as a tweet with that schedule, send, and save option that we looked at. All right. So some stats for Twitter real quick before we look at more examples and talk about more categories that work well on Twitter is you need to remember how quick of a moving platform Twitter is compared to the other networks. So in the time it took me to read Twitter's mission statement there, about 40,000 tweets will have been published in that time. Insanely fast, right? So that means for you, you need to be showing up on Twitter quite a bit more often. And a lot of people get really nervous when I say, add a few more time slots to your schedule than you might be used to. You know, don't just post to Twitter one time a day, because you might be worried that, oh, I'm going to really make people unfollow me because they're going to see my post too much. Use the everything you post, but I promise your followers do not. And really, only about 42% of Twitter users log on once a day. And Twitter's algorithm moves the feed so quickly because it wants to show the most recent information, because it is that kind of global conversation, and trending topics is the nature of that network, that I really suggest having something morning, noon, and night at least, so that your brand has the most option of getting in front of those people. So what does this mean for you? It means you really need to tweet hardcore. I know A lot of work needs to be done for this, but you are a brand who is here and you are a brand who is learning because you want to do the work so that you can get ahead of other people who are trying to gain the attention of people online, right? Because attention is the currency that we all want these days when it comes to social media posting. So really make sure that you're pushing yourself to either add a couple more time slots. If you're on Edgar Lite and you do only have 10 time slots, that manual schedule, send, and save is available for you, and you have unlimited access to that as well. So go ahead and take advantage of that and test out adding a few more time slots in that way as well. The good news, writing tweets is not that complicated. So while it might take you a little more time to batch out tweets because you can't reuse the same exact tweet, with that 280 character limit, it's not like you're going to have to spend a ton of time, right? So as we're doing this, I want you to think about what content you already have that could be turned into a tweet easily. Remember that slide from a few slides ago that said only about 42% of Twitter users log on once a day? Hey, this could be a really cool tweet that a company like Meet Edgar could use, right? All I would need to do is screenshot that slide like I did here. You can see a little meta slide on slide going on. But if I just screenshot that slide here, that's going to be a photo that I can add to Twitter. I always recommend making sure you have photos and videos mixed in with your Twitter content because that really is the stuff that's going to make people stop their scroll. I could screenshot that slide, use this to add as a photo into my Meet Edgar library, write a quick status update about it. And that's a really good statistic. And people on Twitter love data and statistics that I could share out without really having to do that much more work. You are probably sitting on a gold mine of tweets like this. And this is one of the best things that we recommend doing so that you make sure you're upcycling your content. You're working smarter, especially this time of year, and looking at the content you already have and seeing how you can upcycle it there. So I want you to sit down and really start thinking about making sure you get a month's worth of content scheduled out for this holiday season. It is not super hard to do, especially with Meet Edgar's categories. Now, batching in Meet Edgar, if you've never done batching math before, this worksheet that I'm dropping in here has the batching math on it and how categories work. But essentially, let's say you want to send out 6 status updates a day, 5 days a week. That's going to be the math on this worksheet here. And if you break that down into using 6 different categories, that's going to mean you have to create 120 status updates altogether. But if you divide that by your 6 categories, that's only 20 status updates per category, which makes it a lot easier for you to sit down, block out a day, and write out all your tweets. Now, what things make for a good tweet? Don't overcomplicate it. It's stuff that's going to educate and add value to your followers. And it's that stuff that, again, you probably already have. So this is actually right here, like a month's worth of Twitter content right here on these blocks. You see 5 days a week, 4 weeks, that's basically a month. Look how easy you could actually just sit down in your Meet Edgar library and write each one of these. You have a variety of status updates going on to lay the foundation, to educate, to entertain your community, to make sure you're staying top of mind and that your brand is showing up in people's feeds. So you could do something like a pull quote. You already have a blog post written, or if you're a podcaster, you already have show notes written, right? All you have to do with those show notes or blog posts that you already have is copy and paste a really awesome quote from it, make that a tweet, and you're good to go. An FAQ in your inbox. What do people ask all of the time? What do you get asked every single day? Make that answer a tweet, right? You want to make sure that you're answering people because you guarantee if someone's writing in about something, there's probably 10 more people out there who have that question and just aren't writing in about it. So take the opportunity to proactively educate your followers on this stuff. If you have a blog post, go ahead and send that out. If you have company values, make sure you're sharing your company values. People purchase from companies that align with their values way more than anything. Look up those fun holidays. Do a demo. You can post video to Twitter, and you best believe video in any algorithm these days is getting a lot of love because it's some of the content people like to consume the most. So go ahead and do a 2-minute video and upload that to go to Twitter. You get the point here. There's a ton of content that's available for you. So retweeting is a really good example of something you can do to build in collaboration, Jess. And you can absolutely schedule retweets in Edgar. The trick, thank you, Maura, is going to be right in that YouTube video right there. So you can see how you can schedule a retweet, which is where you just go and grab a tweet from someone who's already tweeted something that's going to be relevant, add it into your Meet Edgar library there. The trick there is you just have to make sure that you turn off the Meet Edgar link shortening. It will be sent out as a retweet. So retweeting is great because, again, if you think back to Twitter's mission statement, it's all about having a global conversation. So you want to make sure that you're at mentioning, you want to make sure that you're doing these fun things. You can actually at mention in Meet Edgar. The trick to that for Twitter is that the content can only be connected to Twitter. So let me show you how that works really quickly right here. So if you did want to tweet something and you wanted to at mention someone, when you click to add content here, make sure that it's only connected to Twitter. You put in your little at mention and you start typing. You'll notice that this comes in here. You can just choose it. When you get this little Twitter icon, you'll know it's been established as a retweet or as a Twitter tag here. So go ahead and try out those things as well. Like I said, anytime you can have like a conversation on Twitter, it does work really well just because it is such a conversational network. So take these ideas. These can be really good tweets. Remember, again, this is all you would have to write to get one tweet a day out onto Twitter. But I suggest, like I mentioned, doing at least 3 tweets a day to catch those people who consume social media at different times. Remember, probably only about half of your Twitter followers are logging into Twitter every day anyway. So make sure that you're getting the most out of the content that you already have. All right. So categories. So these are just kind of post ideas right here that could absolutely be turned into categories. And a lot of other people who have categories in these ways, like if you have a curated content category, recommended reads category, or a mission category and stuff like that. These are great to kind of drive those category time slots on your schedule, or you can take these as individual posts and manually schedule them with that schedule, send, and save feature. If you're someone who's feeling overwhelmed, especially with the upcoming holidays, and you don't want to take the time to build out your library and do those automation rules on the weekly repeating schedule, absolutely just use that manual schedule to get all of that in there. Once you have a little more time to then actually decide which content is doing best, which you should make into automation rules, you can always do that at a later date. Michael, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that tip. Yes, if you would like to create categories in Meet Edgar and you need your text on Twitter to be different than your text on Facebook, if you're on the full Edgar plan, you absolutely have unlimited categories. So you could make like a Twitter blog posts, a Twitter podcasts, and then you could make a Facebook blog posts and a Facebook podcast category. When you're adding your content into your Meet Edgar library, you'll just always select the appropriate category and attach the account permissions for that appropriate network there. And then you can always on your schedule it separately as well if you have different insights for when people are on each network. That is a great tip right there. Absolutely. If that's confusing at all, I will drop the link into office hours where you can come to an office hour session and we can go over that in a little more detail, or I'll stick around at the end and show you that as well. But categories in Edgar, how I kind of like to think of them is we always recommend that 80-20 rule, right? 80% really valuable categories, 20% a little bit more promotional. And one of the things I was thinking about on a walk the other day was how these are kind of like a seed and soil situation. So the soil is that foundation, right? A seed cannot grow without that really well fertilized soil. So the soil are going to be things like your educational and entertaining categories that are really building people up to become aware of what your product does. So that's like product demos, your blog posts educating people on the benefits or educating people on those things that are going to help them use your product better. Anything that's entertaining to build your brand's personality, that's laying the foundation of actually getting people, again, to really relate to your product or service and make them feel really great about your product or service. Then the seed is going to be that promotional category. So your goal, of course, on social media is to increase your conversions, drive more traffic, and ultimately get more sales. We don't have to apologize for that at all. But that seed is not going to grow unless you've laid the foundation. So that's truly why I recommend doing so many categories that have to do with educational things, like your tips, like your inspirational quotes, like memes that are really funny and get people to laugh. If you get someone to laugh, they associate that really good good laughter feeling with your brand, which when your brand comes up again, they'll be like, oh yeah, for some reason, I have a really good feeling about that brand. I know this stuff sounds a little bit too simple sometimes, but it really does work. So that's why we're going to really push you to do some of these examples that we're coming up here and create categories that are super fun. It's especially important too, because after someone purchases from you, you want them to stick around. You want them to continue to be your follower, continue to engage with your content and all of that fun stuff. So let's start writing some tweets. I'm so excited here. But first, we are going to do a little bit of interaction here because the chat's been a little quiet here. So I would love to hear from you guys 2 new category ideas that you're thinking of up to this point. I'm going to go ahead and close my eyes and count to 5. The first person that I see there is going to get a $25 gift card. So give me 2 category ideas that you're thinking of making in your Meet Edgar account for Twitter. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, Lori, journal ideas and tap tips. I love it. Lori, go ahead and email megan@meetedgar.com. And we will go ahead and get that gift card to you. Michael, holiday and trending topics, that's awesome. So in your categories in Meet Edgar, I love the fact that you're thinking of seasonal categories. So you can always pop your categories on and off of the schedule. Remember, if a category is not on your weekly repeating schedule, that content can live in your library but not send out. So this is an excellent batching strategy for holiday content, right? Holiday content could be loaded up for like the winter months in summertime. It'll just live in your library. Then once the holiday season for winter comes along and you want to send that content out, pop that category on your schedule and let it run through. You see how this is a really flexible program in that way. All right, so let's start writing some tips. Twitter's own advice on writing actual tweets. So these are pulled directly from Twitter's website right here. Is you always want to be conversational. We've already spoken a little bit about that. Keep your copy short and sweet. People are scrolling oh so fast on Twitter, don't you know it? Use images, GIFs, or video whenever possible. Why? Because that is what stops people scroll to actually read that really well-crafted status update that you put out there. And they always recommend testing, you know. My favorite analogy for this is swinging a golf club in the dark does you no good because you can't see the direction your ball went. You can't know if you're improving. Same with social media. One of the best ways of knowing what's working in Twitter is to use our history tab in Edgar. So if you've never used your history tab in Edgar before, it's gonna be a place where you can see like how many people have actually clicked through on the tweets that you're sending out, as well as which variation of that tweet did the best. So your history tab is gonna be right here. You can always sort your history with this little all-time clicks header. This is actually clickable. If you click this, it'll actually sort your posts to show you the ones with the most clicks down to the least clicks. You can then even sort this just by Twitter with these little icons or with these drop-down filters over here. And this will give you a really good idea, you know, on the patterns of the time of day people are clicking the most, what categories people are clicking on the most, stuff like that. The other thing you can do is when you're logged into Twitter, just type in your URL analytics.twitter.com, and that will take you to your Twitter analytics, and they have a wealth of information there on what tweets are doing the best. They also have a ton of demographic information, so if you haven't laid the groundwork of like who your followers are and stuff like that, absolutely check that out. So test, move your categories around, test different things out in Edgar, when and what to send, and what content is really supporting your followers' day. And then monitor trending events. Remember when we talked about at the beginning, the mission statement of Twitter is to have that global conversation with no barriers. Definitely make sure you do that. All right, so this graphic here I pulled from Neil Patel, who is an amazing marketer and has so much knowledge about every social network. And I thought this was really interesting because the hashtag was actually invented on Twitter. It was invented in order to keep track of a wildfire that was going on and to report the most up-to-date information back in the day when Twitter was first created. But these days, your Twitter hashtags are not going to be used in the same way you might use them on a network like Instagram, right? So Katie, no, history is for all of your networks. You can just go ahead and sort it by Twitter if you want there. But for these hashtags for Twitter, he actually sees statistics that say tweets with more than 2 hashtags drop in engagement. So be really careful with the hashtags that you're using on Twitter and try not to exceed 2 of them. Honestly, with a character limit of 280 characters, you probably don't want to do that much anyway. You definitely want to know your brand voice, because Twitter is definitely a place that people are going to want to interact with a personality. They don't want to buy from a logo. They want to buy from the humans behind the network or behind the service or product that you're putting out there. So answer this question for yourself if you haven't yet. After people interact with my brand on Twitter, they should feel ... And this should be the lens that you have on when you're writing and batching all your status updates. For example, here at Meet Edgar, we want people to be inspired to action. We want people to also laugh a little. Our brand voice is slightly sarcastic and cheeky, but it's also really inspirational because we know as small business owners and solopreneurs, you guys don't have a ton of time to spend on social. So we want to make sure that we're inspiring you to get out there and be as efficient as possible. What do you want people to feel after they read your tweet? It really is important to lay this groundwork if you don't know that yet. All right. So one of the best things that I can recommend doing on Twitter really is trying to be funny. People go wild over a funny tweet, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. You can see Charmin here, the toilet paper brand, of course, has this tweet that says, Charmin gives you the best bang for your buck, pants down. Little play on words with hands down there. Super simple tweet here. They just go ahead and show a comparison of products. But that little status update, it's going to make you chuckle. So if you're doing a demo or a product comparison, what can you think of that might make people chuckle there? Because scientifically, laughter truly does bond people because it is kind of an acknowledgement that you're feeling and experiencing the same things. And even though it's just a computer screen, that same thing can be translated for that natural interaction with a brand on Twitter. So another example of what you can try for kind of outside of the box thinking, especially this time of year, is something that might be a little unexpected. You can see Coca-Cola here actually made a Spotify playlist. I have my curiosity piqued like, whoa, wanting to know what is on Coca-Cola's playlist for this wintertime. Could your brand create a piece of content like that? Remember, this is laying the foundation, that soil part of it, so that when you drop in your promotional ones, people know that they have a connection with your brand and they know that you take care of the people who purchase from you. So this could be a really creative piece of content that you could just create for this one time of year. All right, what problems are your followers actively trying to solve in their lives? This is a great question to start asking because you really want to make sure that you're speaking to what's going on in the trending topics. Remember, Twitter is a super trending network. So this time of year, people might be thinking about actively solving a different problem. This is a tweet from Verizon. Again, they are actually just curating a list of apps that help you reach your fitness goals. This is incredibly useful this time of year because you know people are gearing up for that New Year's resolution of getting fit, of staying really active in their fitness programs. And Verizon can add this as a valuable piece of information. So again, it doesn't have to be directly related, but your brand is still showing up in people's feeds. It's important because the more touch points you can get with someone, the more you have pull over their purchase power. So touch points, what they are is just someone interacting with your brand, right? And it's said in marketing that it takes 7 touch points in order to create purchase power. So this is just another touch point Verizon's having without having to explicitly say like, hey, buy our service, right? So again, these things do matter, even if you feel like that they aren't exactly selling for you, they're laying the foundation out. So Laura Roeder is actually the founder of Meet Edgar. She has over 30,000 Twitter followers. People actually used to call her the Tweeter back in her day when she used to teach online social media marketing. And this is a post that she's put out about anyone else feeling urgent, needing to select their 2021 planner now that it's November. You can see she added a GIF that's quite related, but also quite funny here. The GIF is going to get people to stop their scroll. And then this is a great personal story. How did she gain so many Twitter followers in her day? It really was from telling personal stories. She relates to people and has a conversational tone that is awesome for people saying, oh yeah, I feel that too. I relate and resonate with that as well. I want the life outcomes that you have. So perhaps I'm going to buy a purchase planner, or I'm going to talk to you about purchasing this planner, right? So it's a time for you to just start thinking about these stories that your followers are probably going through at the same time that you are. That's a great relational piece of content. Remember, your categories are completely up to you what you want to name them. So if you want to test out some of these more like personal behind the scenes stories to create those relations, perhaps consider making one of those categories in Meet Edgar and scheduling out some of these tweets, because again, to Twitter's own advice, test different types of content. You never know it's going to work and hit someone at the same time. Lori, I'm so sorry you do hate those GIFs. They are really good for stopping the scroll, but if you prefer those static images, definitely you could replace that with a static image or a meme as well. So as you're starting to think about laying your foundational posts, and I hope you're getting ideas for actually popping some of those into Meet Edgar right now, you also, of course, want to think about the ways you can create what's called scarcity and urgency in your promotions. This time of year is really great because people are just used to Black Friday deals, end of the year deals, Happy New Year's Day deals. It's kind of baked into our system and they're expecting those sales to come around. So make sure you're building anticipation on Twitter now if you have a sale coming up, so you can make sure people are thinking about allocating that money they have towards your product. If you're not letting people know that, they might be thinking about purchasing from someone else who does have a sale. I absolutely love the technique that this tweet does. It just says, double that free trial, our holiday treat to you. What a great way to get people to actually come into your product, test it out. They know they're getting an extra free trial this time of year, so important as we're all a little bit busier. So these are really creative ways that you can actually get people to come into your product or service. You know, if you don't sell like a software with a free trial or something like that, could you offer like a bonus call? Could you actually sit down and have like these one-on-one calls if you're more service oriented with people if they sign up now? So what kind of bonus can you create in your tweets so that people feel that sense of urgency that they want to do this now, because you know you want to get that revenue in 2020 rather than waiting till 2021. So in your promotional tweets, start thinking about the ways you can use this holiday time right now to create a little bit of sense of urgency that a deal you're offering is only available during this time frame, and see if that increases your sign-up rate or increases those conversions. All right, so what I like to also remind you is that whenever you're selling to someone, we always suggest you think about the fact that you're changing someone's behavior. We think about that a lot here at Meet Edgar, because if you're someone who's been writing status updates just one-off and you're not familiar with the concept of batching, we have to convince you that this behavior change is actually going to save you so much time, so much stress. It's going to have a relief over you so that you can spend time working on other areas of your business and not worry about writing status updates. When you context switch from doing one activity to another activity in your business, it said you lose about 20 minutes between those two tasks. So if you can do everything at once, it's a lot more of an efficient way of scheduling social media. So these are some of the behavior changes we think about people having to make to be successful with our product or service. So whenever you're selling, you want to really think about the identity that people are going to want to have. If someone identifies with what you're selling in that way and they say, yes, that's me, it's going to be much more likely they're going to buy it. This, I think, is a really good one from Treehouse here in their tweet. Super simple again. It says, learn to code, wake up happy, get a dream job. They've identified what their audience, who they want to purchase from Treehouse, wants as their ultimate outcome. They're not just listing the features and the classes that Treehouse has. They're actually going out there and listing the benefit of, if you use Treehouse, which is a coding education company, if you use their service, you're going to get that dream job. Think about the identity that your actual clients want after using your product or service, and put that language in the tweet, excuse me. It's going to be the identity, the outcome, that lifestyle that people want. Do a little bit of work to write that down and to make sure that shows up in all of that content. I actually love this right here, what Ryan Holiday did with this tweet. He put a quote screenshot here. That's an identity quote, really. If you read this and you identify with that, with this is something that your values align with, or this is something that you agree with, this is a really great thing for you to go ahead and put to capture someone's attention and them to say, oh yeah, I agree with that. And then you can see in his tweet right here that it's actually kind of a promotional tweet asking you to sign up for a daily email from him. So this is a really great lead magnet that he's using, but he's doing it in a way that this tweet not only is adding value because it's probably inspiring someone, but it's pre-qualifying the people who are signing up. Because if you agree with this quote, it's likely you'll go ahead and love his email newsletter. So can you find some quotes to put out there that are going to grab people's attention and really have your core audience identify with them, or people who are going to be successful at using your product or service who identify with the concept in that quote, and then go ahead and ask them to sign up? Because again, we don't want just anyone on our newsletters. We want people who are excited about our product or service. It is far better to have a smaller newsletter or a smaller following of engaged and excited followers than a massive one of people who aren't pre-qualified for being able to use your product or service well. All right, so as we go along here, another brand that I absolutely love on Twitter is Innocent Drinks. They're actually a smoothie company, and their brand personality is hysterical on Twitter. A lot of the time, it has nothing to do with smoothies, but people love following them for their cheeky humor. Again, Twitter is all about brand personality. That's why it's important to know your brand voice, know the feeling you want to give people when they read your tweets. You can see this is just saying, we interrupt our relentless smoothie-based marketing message to bring you this photo of a baby skunk. This is so good, right? So you need a way to stop people scroll a lot of the time, because another Twitter statistic is that when people log on to Twitter, it's typically for a session that's 3 minutes on average. That's not a lot of time that they're scrolling through super quickly. So you need something to grab their attention. This baby skunk might just do it. And you can remind people that you're a smoothie-based company, but you've also just given them a really great photo to post there. All right, so variations. As we talked about, if you came in late, I did go ahead and share this handout about variations. If you go to the chat at the top there and you go to the handout section, More actually made it. It's excellent. 20 social media post ideas for one piece of content. And this is what the variations are used best for. Now, the variations in Meet Edgar really are there to make your life as easy as possible. So we looked at how to add manual variations, but you can also add suggested variations, which we'll look at, which are really excellent for things like blog posts and show notes from podcasts, because Edgar can actually go ahead and grab the text from your blog or from your podcast and make a status update for you. So why variations in an evergreen strategy on Twitter is so important, because you never know when a message is going to hit someone at the right time. Again, if you're resharing something on social media that someone saw before, number one, they're probably not going to be mad about it too. Number two, it's really likely that when they saw it the first time, they could have been standing in line at the grocery store and didn't have a lot of time to consider it. Perhaps if that same concept shows up in their feed, they'll like to go over and read that full blog post, or they'll like to sign up for your program because they're sitting down where they have time to actually read it. So that's something that I just like to put out there to really remind you that having these variations in an evergreen strategy is an awesome thing to do on social media. Because we have different people who are in different journeys with us, right? We have people who are just getting aware of our brand and just becoming to know that a solution like your product or service exists. And then we have people who might be ready to buy right away. They want a solution. They want their pain point gone. And we need to make sure we're speaking to all of these people. So these three marketing M's are a way that I also like to think of for adding variety to your tweets that you're sending out. So as you're doing this, the three M's are your message, the messenger, or the method. So the message, that's just going to be your words, your creative, what you're writing. The messenger, in this case, is going to be something like which social network it's on. If it's in a newsletter, remember, upcycling is all about making sure that you're creating multiple status updates from one really well-researched piece of content. And then the method is going to be something like a blog, a video, a photo, an audio. You know, for me, I love listening to podcasts. That is the way I retain information the most. Other people might not love that and they want to read your information in a blog post. Could you offer it in both forms so that the method that people consume it is really attractive to the majority of people in your audience? So you could have one blog post and you could change the message that you're sharing it on. This would be writing a different status update to introduce that. So you could ask a different question of your followers. You could go ahead and get a different pull quote from it. You could go ahead and tell a personal story about why you wrote that. You could then have the messenger be different as well. You could share that blog post in your newsletter. You also want to share it on Twitter. Perhaps a couple days later, you want to share it on Facebook. You get the point there. And then the method, how could you upcycle that blog post? You could share it as the blog post. You could share little pull quotes as text-only tips to have people who don't actually click through on links that often still get the value of your well-researched topic. You could film a 2-minute video of some of your favorite content from that blog post so that it captures people's attention who might prefer to watch video. You could go ahead and read that blog post into a podcast format. So you see how you can mix this up and match, and you could probably get about 20 different varieties as that worksheet shows for your tweets, so you can reshare things to make sure it's hitting people at the time that they're ready to buy. So social post here is our podcast here at Meet Edgar. It is a really simple way that you can reshare a post onto Twitter from a podcast. Is say you could just share the title of the episode. Great, you're giving people exactly what it's going to be. If they're interested in that topic, they'll click through and consume it. You could ask a question and really pique people's curiosity. One of the things we find at Meet Edgar is when we do ask a question in front of our blogs or podcasts, it does typically get a bigger click-through rate. You could share your own story about actually recording that podcast to give a little bit of behind-the-scenes content. You could choose your favorite quote from the episode and put that as a pull quote. Those are 4 variations you could add for this one podcast so that Edgar is able to continue to recycle through them. All right, so last slide here before we go into a little more product demo is really remember on Twitter especially that you're focusing on contribution over status. And that means stop looking at your follower count all the time and focus on giving people really awesome tweets to consume, and the follower count will take care of itself. So I'm going to show you a couple of more things here with things that have to do with auto variations, suggested variations in Edgar. But if you do have any other questions, let me know in the chat there, and I'll go ahead and get those answered for you. But within Edgar, as we were talking about using the variations in your account, we also have a way of doing this if you put a URL into this section. So right here, I click to add new content. I went ahead and put my URL in here. I'm going to attach it to Twitter here. Now you'll notice if I have a URL in this text box next to the manual variations, I have the suggest variations button. Now if I click to suggest variations, it's going to go ahead and use what's called natural language processing to write my tweets for me. So you can see here that Edgar's gone ahead and written these tweets. So what these tweets are pull quotes from within this blog post that I put there. This is an excellent way to build curiosity, set people's expectations, and really make sure that you're quickly adding a variety of posts here. You can do this for all of your blog posts. You can make these variations, and then you know you have 5 variations made, and that'll last you a while as Edgar starts to cycle through. Again, variations can be used for any network. So if this post is connected to like Facebook and Twitter here, you can absolutely use these variations. Edgar will expire them for Twitter, but they'll continue rotating through for Facebook. If you do use auto variations here, suggested variations for Facebook, you will notice that you do get a second text box down here that says Facebook text. You're welcome to alter the text for Twitter and for Facebook on this. The reason that this is available here actually is because Facebook has a term of service that says you cannot have automated content creation, which they see our auto variations as being automated content creation. They allow automated scheduling, but not automated creation. So all you really have to do is copy this and paste it down here, and they take that as totally fine because you've taken that step. So you can either just copy and paste or go ahead and switch out the language. If you do leave this Facebook text box empty, Edgar will go ahead and just send the link preview. So if you wanted to know what that's going to look like at any time on a post, you can always click this little eyeball section here. You can see what we'll send if you forget to fill that out. It's just the link preview. So not a catastrophe, but if you do want a status update included, just make sure you do that. So as I mentioned here, the suggested variations will work for blog posts, articles, podcast show notes, stuff like that. If you have something that's not a URL, you can manually add those variations there. Now in Meet Edgar, we will email you when you're low on variations for a certain category, but a workflow that I suggest taking is here in your library. When you come to your library, you'll notice you have filters over here on the left. You can actually go ahead and sort this by your social network as Twitter. And then this has publishable variations right down here. If you sort this as no, your entire library will sort to show you all of the variations that are completely expired for, or all the posts that are completely expired for Twitter because they've already sent. So if this is something you wanted to use again, you could pick a batching day to just do this once a month to come on in, click edit here on the post in your library and go ahead and add in variations. So make sure that you do that. Make sure that you're keeping an eye if you do have evergreen content that you want to reshare, that you're refilling those variations in that way. All right, cool. Looks like we got those questions answered. Awesome. So we are coming up on the hour here. You guys have been really fun to hang out with. I appreciate how fun you guys have been in the chat and helping each other out. One of my favorite things about doing these content batching parties with small business owners is how gung-ho you guys are to help each other. So I suggest kind of connecting with people in the chat right now too to find an accountability partner. You know, if you find someone, if you want to share what industry you're in, or you want to share a handle to your Twitter account, what your @ handle is, let's support each other on social media. You could find an accountability buddy to help you make sure that you are staying up with your posts and your batching strategy. You know, let that person know I am going to batch my Twitter content the first Monday of every month, and check in with each other. Did you do it? Just use these things. You know, if you're a small team or if you don't have a team, it is really helpful to have other small business owners out there. Awesome. Thanks for sharing your handles, guys. These are really fun, and I'd love to come check out your tweets afterwards as well. So I'll collect these from the chat. But yeah, let me know if you guys do have any other questions. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes here. Otherwise, we do run office hours every single day at Meet Edgar, and I'd love to see you there. They are completely unstructured. I promise that I won't come with slides at you in those ones. So if you do have any further questions that didn't get answered today, if you're trying Edgar out or if you're setting that up, I'll put the link where you can go ahead and look at an office hour session. Like I said, these are available any single day. So they are right here. So join me there if you do have future questions that we didn't get to today. Awesome. Ooh, I love all these handles. Super fun. But my question is, I'd like to share content across platforms. Yes. So LinkedIn currently does not allow you to share direct videos. So if you do want to share a video to LinkedIn, you'd have to upload it to YouTube or Vimeo or a site that would give you a link. So unfortunately, there's no trick to getting a direct video upload to go to LinkedIn. So I would suggest perhaps consider making 2 different categories or adding the posts back to back in the same category. So how that works is when you're adding content to Edgar, go ahead and upload the direct video and attach it to Facebook and Twitter and write your status update and save it to your video category. Then right after that, go ahead and in that video category, click to add content and attach it to LinkedIn with the YouTube video link this time. If those 2 were added back to back in the same category, and that category is on your schedule connected to Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, Edgar will hit that category. The most recent update that has permission to go to Twitter and Facebook will send out, but Edgar will notice that time slot also had permission to go to LinkedIn. So he'll continue looking into the category for the next post in there that has permission to go to LinkedIn. If you've added them back to back, that will send as well. So that's probably the best way I would suggest doing it. So yeah, just uploading it to YouTube, or you would have to upload it directly to LinkedIn. Fingers crossed they'll open their API up to us and we'll be able to post direct video to LinkedIn at some point. But if there are other feature suggestions, guys, that you have and you'd love to see me, Edgar, create, we do have this feature suggestion board also. I'm going to drop it in the chat here. It's where you can like upvote and downvote different feature requests, and we'd love to know your opinion on what you want to see, especially as we're building our roadmap out for 2021. So go ahead and grab that and make your feature suggestions known as well. Awesome. Oh, thank you for that. Excellent. For that very nice feedback, Marty. That's so nice to hear. Yeah, as well as making sure you're emailing support@meetedgar.com. If there are any other topics that you guys are super excited about learning about, we are more than happy to set up webinars. We're having some really fun partner webinars coming up in 2021. So keep your eye out for a few subjects that we're not necessarily the prime experts in. So we want to bring people who are experts right to you guys so we can get you the most up-to-date social media information, because you know social media moves fast, and that's why experimenting and testing is one of the most important things that you guys can do. Awesome. So guys, if you do have any other feedback or questions, let me know at support@meetedgar.com. I'll be in the inbox the rest of the afternoon. So if you do have an image, Edgar does no resizing, so the image will send exactly as you upload it. So if you do need your images to be separate, again, I would suggest taking that workflow of either creating separate categories per network, or creating the posts and adding them back to back in the same category. So the email is support@meetedgar.com. So yeah, there's no optimizing images directly in Edgar. Again, love this as a feature suggestion. If you need image sizes, we actually have a really great guide that'll pop into the chat too. Hold on. Oops. How to properly size image. There it is. All right, so this blog post here will give you good image sizes if you wanted to check that out. And you know, if you don't actually care about the same post being sent to the same network at the same time, you can always add those not back to back in a category, or you can always shuffle your category. If you shuffle a category in Edgar, I know I almost signed off without showing you guys this. What a good question here. So in your categories here in Edgar, if you ever have a time slot that is connected to all of your accounts, and all of the posts in the library are also connected to all of your accounts, but you do not want the same post to go out to all of those accounts at the same time, come to your categories tab right here and click on this little double crossed arrow icon. This will shuffle your posts. If your categories are shuffled, a different post from that category will go out to the networks that are attached to that category on your schedule. So that's another option you have, if just kind of depending upon how you like to share things on social media in that way. Awesome, guys. So like I said, let me know feedback. Let me know any other questions that you do have. If you are new to Edgar and you're just getting set up, this right here is our onboarding playlist that has like 2-minute videos of each section of Edgar 2. So go ahead and grab that if you need a reminder. All right, awesome. Lori, thanks you so much. Remember to email me, Lori, and I'll get you that gift card. Thanks for participating today. And the rest of you, let us know if you have any other questions at all. Support@meetedgar.com. We do content batching parties every single month, and we'd love to have you back in the future, or come to one of our other webinars sometime so we can support each other and have a really fun community here. Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out today, guys, and go get batching those tweets.